Grahame has wanted to be a druid for as long as he can remember. Talented, but headstrong, he runs afoul of a despotic, mind-controlling mage during his initiation quest. The price of failure is death. Hello and welcome to Liam's Lifestyle. I'm your host, Liam, aka Himvar, and today I'll be doing a spoiler-free review of Mike Mollman's Becoming a Druid. Becoming a Druid is a 2021 novel by Mike Mollman and book 1 in the Protectors of Pretanni, which has a sequel out as well as a book 1.5 in the series, which is a collection of shorter works, like short stories and such. It is set in about 300 BC, I believe. It's historical fantasy in Britain before the Romans came. It is still very firmly Celtic or Brythonic, to be more accurate. Our main character, Grahame, or maybe Grahame, I actually listened to this one on audio, so that's how the narrator says it, but narrators actually get names wrong decently often. It looks like Grahame to me, and he can transform into different animals, which is one of the power of the druids, though these druids don't all have the same level almost in these powers. So Grahame is very good at transforming into different animals, but other druids are not so great at it. He is a fledgling of sorts. He's an apprentice, but he's not yet been given a quest to prove himself and become a full druid. It gets right into the story from the start. It doesn't waste any time, actually, which I appreciate. It's coming of age, and Grahame, with his great powers, even compared to his peers, is tested throughout. It's told in first person, and Grahame is actually quite old for an apprentice. His hubris resulted in him not going or getting along with his first two mentors, and so he's just kind of an older apprentice. The story starts with Grahame training with his mentor, and quickly a visitor arrives. It's very fast pace. It's up to you whether you enjoy that pace or not, I guess, but I enjoyed it. There's ideas we get these glimpses world that presumably there's things like giants, pixies, and elves. We do get a large focus on family elements, as Grahame spent some time with his brother and more with his nephew. We also get a lot of, I guess you could call mind control magic, or what would you call in Dungeons and Dragons? You'd call it psionics type of thing. So it's a fairy tale in elemental ways, though, and the mode does seem modern. It's one of those stories that Nico from Nico's Book Reviews actually does a good job saying it feels kind of lighthearted, but it actually has dark elements, and there's some pretty dark consequences if you fail. And again, right, fairy tales are dark lessons in reality, right? Especially if you read the not so watered down versions. And that's what this is. It's a dark lesson, essentially. It feels vaguely Arthurian as well. Yeah, so, and it also kind of feels like Dungeons and Dragons style of heroic fantasy. Not as much as something like Paladin Unbound, who Jeff Spate, I think, wrote. But the idea of going on a quest kind of makes it feel like that. It's not my favorite idea of just let's go on a quest type of thing. Feels a little contrived. But again, it's this apprentice trying to become a full-blown druid, so it works rather well. And the quest itself is interesting, and there's a lot of nuance to it that, it could be a lot more straightforward, but it's not, right? And so in that way, when you get this nuance, it feels less like a story for kids and more of like one for adults, even with that. The story itself kind of revolves around Samhain approaching, which just actually happened as of last week, me recording this, which is right around Halloween for those unaware of it. I'm not going to really define it for you, but it's a day where the veil between the living and dead is at its thinnest, and it's a holy day, essentially, for the druids. Again, the story keeps things interesting. There are twists, and the scope gets larger and less centered on Grahame and his selfishness. And there's some subtle nods to other things that I appreciated throughout as well. It's just a fun read. It's a good example of what things like indie press or self-published stuff can do. And I am looking forward to reading the rest at some point. So check it out if it sounds like some fun heroic fantasy.